doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to Major League A-Holes. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes. Episode number 150. Actually, this could be episode 151. We did record an entire episode. Or at least we thought we had recorded an entire episode on Thursday night after Pedro Grifol had been fired. Somehow it did not record the hour and a half of incredible baseball conversation we had. Instead recorded the minute and 57 seconds when I jumped up to take a piss after the show. I'm not sure exactly how that, actually I am pretty sure how that happened, but hopefully that will never happen again. It may be our best show ever, but I guess it just shows what disarray this Major League A-Holes organization is in. The only organization that might match that would be the Chicago White Sox.
Oh,
who lost, what was it, 21 in a row? Finally won a game, and then you fired your manager. We were broadcasting the day of, or at least attempting to last Thursday. We'll try to recapture that magic tonight on a Thursday Monday.
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, you're struggling over there.
I've been rocking all weekend, so.
But you had such enthusiasm for baseball, for everything. Now you have none. You look downtrodden. you look like you've had a rough rock and roll weekend. As you saw Metallica, did you see? Well, you saw Pantera before that. Is that the only rock show you were at?
Metallica on Friday, and then no repeat weekend, so they had Saturday off, and then back at Metallica again last night. So
you saw them twice. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 2 unique sets. So
yeah, no wonder you look like death.
Yeah, I mean, I got home at midnight and had to be up at 5:45 for work. So
that's a rock and roll lifestyle right there.
I was about to rock. Fire!
Well, the benefit of losing the original episode 150, which is still amazing. We got to 150 considering how bad we are at this.
The lost episode.
It did give us an opportunity to consume the entire Crosstown Series, which you missed most of due to your intense concert schedule.
And hate.
But also the Giants and Tigers played this weekend. It was rivalry for Major League A-Holes. So quite a weekend of baseball. Not only that, we have a no-hitter from the Giants, Blake Snell, to talk about. That's almost a week and a half old now, but
hey.
We'll talk about the Tigers. I've got maybe the most controversial thing I've ever said about the Tigers. Probably going to be an unpopular opinion of mine about Jim Leyland and his retiring his number. I have no problem with him being put into the Hall of Fame, but the Tigers retiring his number 2 weekends ago is kind of want to raise some questions about that. So,
I thought you were going to say AJ Hinch isn't that good of a manager, but anyway, go ahead.
I'm basing my thoughts in reality, so that wouldn't make any sense. But maybe. Oh, I forgot. I've got to throw in an aesthetics when we're talking about the Cubs because they've got a New Jersey sleeve patch ad. So much to your chagrin, but we will throw that in there as the time comes. So I guess with that, we might as well go and jump into the news.
Well, the Sox ended their 21-game losing streak last week, and then to celebrate, they fired Pedro Grifol. They flushed him. Let's just flush it. We flushed Pedro. He gone.
Your 21-game losing streak matched the American League record with the 1988 Baltimore Orioles.
Yes.
I think they couldn't fire the manager and bring in a new guy like during that historic streak because that's just ridiculous amount of weight to put on. Eventually it would be decided that Grady Sizemore would take over, but I think they were just waiting for that streak to end before they would put Pedro out of his misery.
Yeah, that makes
some logic there at least, but
yeah, and Smitty and I, when we got the news, we were immediately speculating that perhaps TLR could come in and serve as the interim manager. But quickly, like hour or two later, we heard that it was Grady Sizemore. But I guess
it was
before
weird.
That we had heard about then like a weird what would you call it? What did it feel like? Like casualties occurred post Pedro getting fired with.
Well, it was strange how the whole thing unfolded because they fired him Thursday morning. The press release came out that Pedro would be relieved of his duties, but it kind of started trickling out over the next 2 hours that your third base coach was fired, Charlie Montoyo was fired, which I thought he would be the logical successor, at least in an interim basis, to take over for Grifol because he's got managerial experience over 500 games with the Blue Jays and actually has a 500 record over that time, which would have been a large improvement over Pedro Grifol's 89 and 190 record as White Sox manager.
Yeah.
I guess
Yikes.
as soon as he got to the 100 below 500 record, they actually had to fire him at that point.
Yeah, you had to.
There was some confusion though, like just because the way it was, like that news was coming out before a second press release came out about 2 hours after the Grifol firing about the bench coach and Montoya and others. So it was strange because I had just assumed Montoya would take over, and there was about a 10-minute span when that news has been reported and the actual press release came out that made me think that there's only one person with managerial experience in the White Sox organization at that moment. So could it be Tony La Russa that would take over for the team for this last month and a half? Alas, that notion was squashed when the news came about that Grady Sizemore would be your interim manager. So it was a brief, fleeting moment, but I'm sure you've got thoughts about that. But I do have a list of my top candidates to replace Grifol or eventually Grady Sizemore from an entertainment basis whenever you're ready to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Grady Sizemore, it's kind of like fine. I mean, like it to me it doesn't really matter who is
No,
going to be the interim manager. I mean, I
I
think
think
you
you've
and
got to be
I,
happy that he wasn't part of the Royals organization at least.
yeah, I mean, well, so far we'll see who the next manager is, but maybe the next manager will be the Giants. I mean, the Royals catcher Perez will be a player manager for the White Sox.
Okay. Yeah.
But
That'd be a complicated contract negotiation.
I would be, but that's what Getz is about. He loves a complicated contract. I heard that about him.
It does.
More rumors about Chris Getz I'm spreading on this show. But I mean, you got to wonder. I think we talked about this when we attempted to do this the first time. I mean, I think you brought this up? Did Montoya just jump ship because he didn't have anything to even do with this? Is that why the news
Yeah.
trickled out? Was it? Hey, you're going to be the interim manager. He's like, I'll just leave. I mean, I'm good.
See you later.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
I don't need this.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, maybe he's too proud of his 500 record as a manager throughout his career, and he would definitely not maintain that over these next 6-8 weeks. So
yeah,
it could be. I haven't seen much reporting about that. I haven't delved too deeply into it, but I haven't heard much talk on Sports Talk Radio necessarily about how that all went down. It was just very confusing, I guess, at the moment on Thursday at least.
Yeah,
it's kind of immaterial.
It was weird because usually in the past, I feel like when I've read reports about a manager getting fired, and they usually announced what other parts of the coaching staff went with them. And in a lot of cases, when it's
or who would be replacing him? Why two separate announcements hours apart?
That's why I think your thinking's correct in that shit. Okay.
They didn't have their ducks in a row.
Not only does he not want the job, he left. He's just like, fuck it, I'm out. So we got to go to plan B or do you think? I didn't even think about this. We didn't talk about this last week. Did they offer it to all three of those guys, and they were all just like, never mind?
Yeah, I mean that's been speculated. So I don't know. I mean, who fucking knows?
I'll tell you what. If I was like a coach in that organization and seeing how things have been run for like the last 2 years or even further
or
back than there.
43.
Yeah, well, further back than that, but like really so badly, like disgustingly bad over the last 3 plus years. Like I'd be like, I don't want. I mean, like how they even. I guess Montoya wanted back in probably, but I mean now he's scar. He's probably tainted. Like it's are
Eh,
these? I mean,
I don't know. I don't
I
know
don't
if it
know,
would.
but
He's got his resume. I'm not worried about
but
him. He'll be all right. I guess I didn't even know Grady Sizemore was in your organization. He was promoted
yeah,
from Major League. His job title was Major League Coach, I believe. I don't know what that means, but he is now your Major League Manager
he
with
is. It means
no
he's a
previous
coach.
experience.
It means he's a coach in the majors. Duh.
Yeah, I gathered that. I mean, again, to your point, like who it doesn't really matter who's the manager for this season. They made it abundantly clear that he is merely the interim manager. So, that although I mean, I guess they're not closing the door to him potentially being the full time manager. As they're implementing a worldwide search. Chris Getz mentioned they wanted to look at other organizations, which would be the opposite way that he was hired himself, as he was already part of the White Sox farm system director. He was just promoted to GM, so I guess he wanted to make it a point they weren't going to do it the same way.
Mm,
He also said it was going to be a uniformed, not manager, uniformed personnel from other
yes.
teams. So
Yeah.
I thought that was curious too. But that got me to speculating,
Oh
and
shit.
as a podcaster and blogger, I'm all here for the entertainment. So I put together a list of who the top candidates could possibly be to entertain us, to give us content. And there is no other content generator as good as Tony La Russa. And if he were somehow to return, the return of La Russa Palooza or La Russa Palooza 2, I'd be all for it. I mean, he basically carried us for most of the beginning of when we started podcasting, turned this from a blog into a podcast. I mean, just the unbelievable way he was hired and stories throughout his 2-year reign of terror was just tremendous. Just a content generating machine. So on that level, it would be awesome to have Tony La Russa to be your 42nd manager. Actually, he'd be still your 41st because he already was twice. So who knows? But I thought that'd be great. I don't know if you would be up for that as well. I don't think you would.
I'm up for TLR as a interim manager, but not as a go forward manager. So I'm
That's what I
more.
thought, and I thought it's ridiculous to think he would be hired as the manager. But I thought it was plausible, at least for those 10 minutes where
Yeah,
things were in limbo. That why since the interim manager just does not matter for this last part of the season, why not bring in TLR?
yeah. I mean, give
Uh,
us some entertainment value. I mean, I think for me, if anyone were to come back, I'm for Ozzy, but I don't know where he fits in
he's
on your list.
he is number 2 on my
Oh, okay,
illustrious list.
so we'll wait for that.
Ozzy
So
Ozzie Guillen would be probably right there as the most entertaining possible choice that the White Sox could have. Um, he's so goddamn entertaining as the post game show on the post game show. It would kind of be a loss in a way that you wouldn't have him in that role anymore. So I don't know if he's better served keeping his current role, or if he'd even be interested. I think he is interested in managing again, and I think he would take the job if Chris Getz offered it to him. It would be awkward. It'd be hilarious. It'd be perfect. It would be a throwback to some greater times for the White Sox and some other tumultuous times for the White Sox. But getting to hear him talk after every game and before every game would be a gift to the baseball world.
yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I mean, you can't argue with how that team performed defensively on the field. So that's what they really need a vast improvement in. So, like the idea of Ozzy coming back, and while years ago I would have frowned upon it, like 2 managers ago I would have frowned upon it, 3 managers ago. Now I'm very open to it. I would not mind it at all.
Well, he just managed Venezuela to I don't know, South American championship. Forget what what the competition was, but he was just a manager this past summer, so it's not like he's or maybe it was this spring, but it's not like he's completely out of the loop. He clearly knows everything going on with the organization, and he's been on the bench recently, so I don't think it's outrageous.
Right.
I'm rooting for it. Number 3 on my list is from a blast from the past, and this would be controversial as fuck, and it would be entertaining as hell to bring Joe Madden
Oh
back to
God.
Chicago, to the scene of the crime. uh, Joe Madden is just a fascinating story and will always be. But he's been kind of like removed from baseball. He's like fallen out of favor with most of the young modern general managers that started with Theo Epstein, Jed Hoyer, and he went to the Angels and did not last long there. And he's
No.
just doing a podcast and working with the MLB Network and sounds kind of bitter about about how his career has turned out. And the craziest thing is you'd think the manager of the Chicago Cubs that finally broke the curse after 108 years would be beloved in the city of Chicago. You'd think he would have statues. You'd think he would, have his obligatory steakhouse in downtown Chicago. You'd think he would just be the toast of the town, much like Mike Ditka. A very proven to be a very mediocre coach that is a god in the city of Chicago because of his one Super Bowl championship. Where you'd think that would apply to Joe Madden as well, and it clearly does not. And it didn't from day one after the World Series. People were bitter against him for felt like he almost cost them the World Series. They won in spite of him. So you'd think he'd be kind of excited to kind of relive that or revive that legacy in the Cubs' backyard. If that was a potential for him, I think he'd be all for it coming back to Chicago. I don't know that the White Sox would have any interest in Joe Madden necessarily unless things align. But I also thought it'd be hilarious to have see him revive his antics, bringing in the petting zoo and the magicians and jugglers and everything else, and having White Sox fans having to enjoy that if the team was winning under that scenario, you'd have to embrace it just like Cubs fans did.
You don't have to
So,
embrace it.
well, a lot of Cubs fans did not, but they were
Yeah.
winning, so it's like, well, who gives a fuck? We're winning 100 games a year. Something's working. So
I guess. Yeah. I don't know that I'd
you
embrace
under
it.
all right, huh?
I don't know. What I mean is, I, I don't know. I'd be like, oh yeah, great. The petting, I'd be like, I just kind of be like, whatever with it. You know, I guess I'd be
That's
more
how a
like,
lot of
yeah, it's working. Okay, fine. Do your shtick. It seems stupid, but
so
whatever.
I guess as a diehard Sox fan, would you be totally against Joe Madden taking over the team, just
Yeah,
because
I
he has the
just think
Cubs stench on him,
no,
or because of
no, it
his
doesn't.
weirdness, or
It's not the Cub stench, and it's not even his weirdness. There's something I don't know, something to talk about at least. But I just think baseball's passed him by. I don't think
that's the best argument. I
I,
was thinking that too.
I don't think he has any interest in going to any team that be I only think he'd be going to a team where ownership and the front office, which there really isn't anyone anymore, is running it in a way of where they're really interested in all your gut feelings, and things like that. And because Joe was like he did do analytics, but
He was a gut
he's
guy.
yeah, but he's a gut guy too. And I don't know, people will say his gut is what almost cost the Cubs the World Series, and maybe his gut was the reason Tampa Bay never won one. So
Yeah,
I think a
Tampa's a
lot
different story, but
I know. I think a lot of managers, obviously, a lot of managers, not obviously, but a lot of managers, I think we just don't hear about it. Everyone's probably making some decisions that aren't purely analytical in the
yeah,
course of a game. You got a hot bat, and he's red hot and hasn't hit this guy well. You might put him in the lineup that night just because of how things are going. But
yeah.
I don't know.
It's
Joe's
the
just been so vocal about how bad baseball is now with the way they run things that I kind of think he's tainted himself to any
yeah.
organization.
Well, and he kind of burned bridges. Clearly there was a conflict between the front office and him in Chicago, and again in Los Angeles. So that the front offices have a lot more influence over lineups and decisions in the dugout than they ever had, and I think Madden was a huge opponent of that, and he butted heads, and it's kind of kicked him out of the league. So that I think it'd be interesting. I don't think it's necessarily plausible, but
Yeah.
I
Definitely would
wanted
be.
to throw that out there.
I guarantee that, dude. You're right on that. It would be interesting.
Well, I think just a little bit less interesting, a little bit more plausible would be AJ Przinsky taking over as manager.
Yes.
Uh,
This has been heard a lot.
it would go against what Chris Getz has said about the kind of candidates they're looking for, because he is not currently in uniform and he has zero managerial experience. But AJ would be a fantastic soundbite. He might be a horrible manager. I don't know. There's so many managers are former catchers. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. But he's got several jobs now. I'm not sure he needs to give up any of those as he's building a podcast empire. He's also broadcasting for Fox, MLB on Fox. But just imagine the sound bites before and after games. It'd be very much like Ozzie Guillen. I think he tells it like he sees it, which is awesome.
Yep.
He's a caustic personality. I think he probably doesn't get along with a lot of people. He doesn't seem like a very popular person within the industry in general. He's certainly popular on the South Side and other places he's been, but I'm not sure how that would work. I think it would be fascinating, and I think we would enjoy every minute of it.
I think if the Sox were in a little different shape, I'd be for AJ. But I feel like they gotta get someone in with some sort of at least coaching experience on a major league level,
Yeah.
to help get this thing going in the right direction. I laugh at the current state of the Sox too, because I think about Jerry Reinsdorf's comments that the reason Chris Getz was hired and they didn't go outside the organization was because they wanted to compete immediately. And what
Yeah.
a fucking joke that has turned into.
Boy. Potentially the least competitive team in MLB history.
Yes. Which,
Well, the final candidate on my list, at least for pure entertainment value, would be David Ross, Grandpa Rossi.
my boy.
Another prodigal son returning to Chicago after he was unceremoniously kicked out of the Cubs organization in favor of Craig Counsell. He's got to have a chip on his shoulder. I'm sure he would love. That's kind of his personality anyway. He would love coming back to the city where he built much of his reputation and had a lot of success. You are certainly a fan, as you've come to his defense on many occasions after his unceremonious exodus from Chicago.
Hello again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Ryan here.
You wouldn't believe how much better this first recording was the first time we tried to record this show. We nailed guys, every line.
You know how we say this show's never scripted? It's almost like it's a little bit scripted tonight because we're trying to recreate the magic, folks.
It was magical. You had a margarita.
I had a margarita. I was in the basketball jersey in celebration of Pedro's hire.
You were fired up about your rock and roll weekend. Yeah. It's a whole different Pete. So I'm going to blame this on you. I don't know. What do you think about David Ross as the next manager?
I'm in, man. This guy got the fuck the Cubs in how they handled Rossi.
They fucked him. They totally fucked him. So why wouldn't he say fuck you?
Yeah. He doesn't owe them shit. He took a team. Not that predictions mean anything, but you look at the predictions are based on what, as we like to say, they're going to be good on paper. Well, they were going to be bad on paper, which means that they exceeded every expectation that
they came within one game of making the wild card, and the team that did make the wild card went to the goddamn World Series. So
yeah,
it's crazy how close the Cubs were, and they thought they could get that little extra percentage better if they hired Craig Counsell, which is. It might be a subject later on, but certainly debatable.
Yeah, I'd say it's majorly debatable right now, but I mean, we'll see what the end result is, right? The season's not over, and Cubs still, are in hopes of a playoff spot. They just blew their
I've got a whole
lead.
segment about that coming up when we get over to the Cubs. So
I mean,
yeah.
they just blew their lead in the Cleveland game, but
Oh well, I've got it on. I can't see it.
four
It
to
was 2-0
three.
when I.
Yeah,
Oh boy,
he let up a homer. Your ace.
Shota Imanaga.
Yeah, but anyway, we're talking about the Sox right now. So I'm
Sorry.
all for Rossi. I'm all for Rossi. So I think I don't think he'd be a bad pick. I think he was getting better, and that's the thing. He was trending upward, and then he got cut off. So if he
Well, he
brings
blew out his. He completely burned out his bullpen in the
yeah,
September
that's
collapse.
true.
But
True.
that's something he could have learned from and adjusted going forward. But
Yeah.
I don't know. He's certainly beloved on the north side. A great personality. He's just sitting on a beach somewhere right now, as far as I know, and just weighing his options. He might have many options actually coming into next season with whatever managerial openings there are, which I'm sure there's going to be plenty.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, but I think landing in the south side of Chicago would be hilarious and awesome.
I think it
The
would be
legitimate, what's that?
I think it would be great. I'm ready.
The
I'm ready for
legitimate
Rossi.
candidates I've heard thrown out there. Skip Schumacher,
Yes.
the Marlins manager, whose contract is ending for sure. Apparently, neither side wants to return, which the Marlins are kind of a crazy organization. He has ties to Tony La Russa, so that's why his name is coming up there, being with the Cardinals organization previously. So I think that seems plausible, I guess. But I think he's also the top candidate on the market, as no one is holding Skip Schumacher accountable for the Marlins losing their entire starting rotation to injury this year and just being a kind of a fucked up organization. So he was not happy how Kim Eng was released as president or GM. I forgot how that
I think it may have
hierarchy
been
worked, but
both actually.
yeah. So Kim Eng has actually been mentioned as potentially a president of baseball operations, maybe Chris Getz's boss candidate. But I think that kind of brings us back to a Kenny versus Rick versus Jerry versus Tony situation. So I'm not sure that would lend clarity or give clarity to the White Sox organization. So the other name I heard thrown out there was Patrick Leland, who's the son of Jim Leyland, who's going to come up later in my Tigers segment. But he's either managing your double A, I think he's managing your double A Birmingham
That puts him in
club
uniform.
yeah, to much success. So thought that'd be an interesting candidate, but who knows? But I don't know if you had other candidates you'd be interested in.
Uh, just want to make sure it's not someone tied back to the Royals somehow. I would
Yeah,
really
I think it's a good
appreciate something
start.
fresh. I mean, I I brought it up a few weeks ago, or maybe it was the last podcast that, which was a few weeks ago. Terry Francona as
Mm.
a possible candidate, but I like it. But then, is he healthy enough to come back? I mean, he left for health reasons. Do you really want to come back to the game if maybe that was part of your cost? I don't
He's
know.
had health issues for years. It's not a new thing. I think it just got to the
Yeah,
point where he couldn't do it anymore. And you'd think it was pretty serious if he quit the Guardians. That was a certainly certainly a good team, certainly a franchise in a very good situation that he wouldn't just walk away from if he could do it. So it'd be kind of surprising if he could come back. But he have ties to Tony La Russa as well? Isn't that the connection at least? Or I forget how his name got brought
yeah.
up, but
I think he was assistant under him or something at some point.
yeah, I
But
mean, these old guys have worked together for so long and been in the league so long. I'm sure they've all worked together in some different capacities. So
yeah, so I don't know.
I don't think that'd be as entertaining as my candidates that I threw out there, but
No,
I think
definitely
that'd be
not.
probably the best, a really good choice if that was an option.
Well, I wanted to do something fun with the Sox ending their losing streak last week, and then of course they just started a new one with Grady Sizemore. Grifol handed him a loss, and then he lost two more to the Cubs. But before we get into that, there's I thought it'd be fun to take a look at the teams the Sox have actually beat this year and how many times they actually beat them.
That's
And
right.
what we're going to
The
see
biggest
on the
loser.
yeah, the biggest loser. What we're going to see on this list is oddly enough, as you get to teams with winning records, the Sox seem to have beat them more. So you tell me.
Wow.
But anyway, there's 16 teams the Sox have beat this year, and they're 28 wins. Uh, 9 of them they've beat once, and that's the Royals, Blue Jays, Mariners, Diamondbacks, Astros, Tigers, Marlins, Twins, and Athletics. And the Athletics, of course, victory helped them end their losing streak.
Oh, that's right.
Then you have
You're welcome.
yeah. Then you have 5 teams they've beat twice: Nationals, Cardinals, Red Sox, Braves, and Rockies. Then at number 2, runner up to being the biggest loser of the season, the Tampa Bay Rays, who the Sox have beat 4 times. That also included a 3-game sweep. A 3-game sweep that was a 5-game. It is hard to believe. They've only won 28 games, and there's a 5-game win streak in that. They won. They were able to string 5 wins in a row together this year.
Those are crazy times back then.
I know.
Wow.
I think I was on this podcast saying this could be things trending in the right direction.
I can see why you'd say that. But
Whoops.
Little did we know.
But the breaking news of this is the aforementioned Guardians, who are taking on the Cubs right now. The Sox have beat 5 times this year.
That's crazy.
Somehow one of the biggest winners in the AL and the AL Central is the biggest loser to the White Sox.
Yeah, you could argue they're amongst the best teams in the American League, if not all of baseball. So to have the most losses to the White Sox is just incredible. Baseball is so fucked up.
I know. This is why you kind of want to watch it, but I have to admit that I did not watch any of the Crosstown Classic this weekend, Smitty. How does that make you feel? Now, Friday I get an excused absence. I was at Mattel.
You definitely do. And Friday was the best game of the weekend, but yeah, it bums me out, especially because you were so fired up. I actually complimented you. I was so excited by the end of the lost episode because you were so excited about baseball again. Because Grifol is gone, your Giants had a shot at the playoffs, but somehow, I guess all that metal just kind of took it out of you.
I think knowing that the podcast didn't record just deflated me, and
that was a sad moment when we realized what the fuck happened.
Because in my head, I'm like, well, we're not going to be this good the second time through.
There's no chance.
No chance in hell we're going to recreate that because we were.
You'd think if we had a dress rehearsal, usually that makes things better the second time around.
But for us, it makes it worse.
Yeah, that's not how this works for us. So.
No, we're all on the magic, but. I think
that margarita on Thursday helped you.
Maybe maybe I need to have the margs when I'm doing this. The margaritas.
Margarita in the basketball jersey.
Well, the basketball jersey was celebratory then, so now I'm already over the celebrating after losing 3. I will tell you this,
clearly the hangover is set in.
I was getting alerts. So I get my alert and the Sox are down like 6-0 right off the bat. And I'm like, wasn't fucking Crochet pitching? Getting lit up or whatever. So I'm like, whatever. Then all of a sudden, or then it was like 7-0. Then like I see the Sox are like itching back. And I was like, oh, like little, I was getting alerts here and there, not all of them. Then I didn't know what happened because I was at the Metallica show, and I looked the next day and I was like, holy shit, 7-6. Grady Sizemore. They got a little fight in them.
The new manager bump, as they call it.
Yeah. And then
honestly, watching that game, it was the complete opposite of what I expected. Just your organization in complete disarray. I assume Crochet was going to pitch lights out, but then we would just beat the fuck out of your bullpen, like has happened in the 7th and 8th innings, pretty much every game. It was a complete opposite. Cubs just kept I think they had 4 homers off Crochet, and then your bullpen came in and was completely lights out. I mean, the Cubs got out to a 7-0 lead, as you saw, and then didn't do anything after that, which is just not at all what I expected. I didn't think you'd do much against Jameson Tyone, which I think you chased him after 4 innings, and then just kept kept coming back. Andrew Benintendi had 2 home runs. He threw out Pete Armstrong at home plate. It was a great game, and it looked like the White Sox were a legitimate baseball team for the first time in a long time. They were fighting, and it was cool to see. And it was they were definitely inspired by their just having a new manager on the bench, I think. But alas, for you White Sox, at least, it was yet another 7-6 loss. All 3 games in the Cubs Sox series to that point were 7-6 Cubs wins. That's just another
crazy.
Fucking weird. That's so weird. One of the many weird things about the second game of this weekend series on Saturday was that they did not win 7-6. Cubs won 3-1. But that didn't stop things from getting weird. As the game was reaching the 9th inning, multiple fans jumped onto the field to have their moment of 15 minutes of fame, 15 seconds of fame.
And a rest.
Yeah. Well, that really leads me right into our asshole of the week. I mean, any field invader is inherently an asshole because you are stopping the game just to get on social media or whatever your motivation is. You're so fucked up. Just needed to run out there and grab all the attention, stop the game, potentially endanger security guards, players. Who knows what the fuck you're capable of. So I think we could anytime somebody jumps onto the field, we could give them our asshole of the week award. But the second individual to jump onto the field, assumingly following his friend. I don't know if they were together or if this was just random. Someone saw somebody get onto the field, and so he's like, I'll do the same thing. Unfortunately, jumped over the outfield wall and immediately broke his leg. To which AJ and was it Adam Amin? I forget who was doing the play-by-play broadcast for Fox, but they were trying to figure out what the hell is going on because you see one guy running around the field getting chased. He was actually quite athletic. He evaded the security guards who are clearly not very athletic. He evaded them for quite a while, but then they were talking about they couldn't. They're not showing any of this on TV. They're just talking about it. They couldn't quite figure out what was happening. Like I think AJ figured it out. Like, I think he injured himself jumping over the wall because I guess he was just laying on the warning track. Eventually, the guy was not only zip tied, but was his leg was immobilized and thrown onto the training cart as they had to bring out a cart to get this individual, further delaying the game. So I'm guessing this guy was taken to the hospital. Apparently, he was as they were taking him out of the stadium. He went by where a lot of the reporters were, and I think Jesse Rogers from ESPN 1000 tried to interview him, figure out what happened. But just an absurd scene. But so this guy has to be taken to the hospital, I guess, and then after that ordeal, gets taken right to jail. So I mean, bad enough you go to jail, but to break your leg, go to the hospital, and have that all that, and just you look like a fucking fool. I mean, it's too perfect. So I kind of wish someone would be severely injured every time they went onto the field like this, so it would encourage less of this stupid behavior, selfish, asshole-ish behavior. But it seemed too perfect. It is a perfect asshole of the week.
All right, you had thought maybe I was the asshole of the week for not watching either of the games.
I understand Friday, you had prior engagements, but I can't believe you just didn't even tune in at all. You didn't even know what I was talking about when I told you about the guy falling on the field, breaking his leg. But
well, the other thing is you text me and you're like, "Why didn't he throw home?" And I'm like, "Is there a game on?"
Yeah, that was a totally different play, but yeah, it's hard to explain actually.
And then Smitty,
this is confusing.
Smitty let me know that there was an invention called television, so I quickly went out and got one so I could watch baseball.
Awesome. Are we done with the White Sox now? We've talked about them for.
I'm done with the White Sox.
All right. Well, I'm going to switch over to my Chicago Cubs if we can. You mentioned earlier that they might have reason to be kind of looking at the playoffs potentially. I kind of the rule of thumb is you can't really talk about the playoffs until you're at least 500. The Cubs are exactly one game below 500 now for the first time since the beginning of June, which is ridiculous, but it's I guess it's a trend up at least. They do have a 20-12 record since July 4th, which is the second best in the National League, only behind the Arizona Diamondbacks in that time span. They've had the best team ERA in that span, the best bullpen in all of baseball, and the second best ERA amongst starters in that span. So they're putting things together. I heard this term. I've never heard this before, but apparently it's a common phrase in Milwaukee, at least. They said we're moving into Craig Timber. That's what they call it. When Craig Counsell's teams have a winning percentage of 58% in the month of September. And that is where they have given the Cubs fits over the last several years as they come on strong, as he's preserved their bullpens, as opposed to the way David Ross managed last year, where the team collapsed. It's interesting that they're kind of building momentum in a lot of ways that Craig's Counsell's teams have in the past. So something to look at least. I'm not saying they're a playoff team. They are currently 3 games back in the third wild card. They're really more than 3 games back. The way you have to look at that is they're behind 3 different teams still to even get to that third wild card slot. The Giants are ahead of them, Cardinals, and the Mets. Actually, my 3 least favorite teams in the world, in the National League at least. So I kind of look at the loss column. Cubs have 60 losses. I think the Giants have 59, Cardinals 58, and Mets 57. So I kind of add up the difference between those. And really, if you look at 3 games back, since they have to jump 3 teams, they're really 6 games back in that because all those teams have to lose more games than the Cubs going forward. So I think it's unlikely that the Cubs make the playoffs, but if they can win tonight, which they are losing, unless that's changed.
No, they're losing big now, 7-3.
Oh, okay. My MLB app totally crapped out. I don't know what's going on. I guess there's nothing but technical difficulties on this end because it's pretty apropos. So if they get to 500, then I'll start talking more about playoffs. But they're bordering on that at this point. So I'm not going to get too chesty right now. But the other thing I want to bring up about the Cubs is, much to your chagrin and much to my enjoyment, is my favorite segment, aesthetics. As the Cubs have partnered with Motorola Technology Corporation to put their logo on the sleeves of every Cubs jersey, which not every team has done that yet. The White Sox have not. We speculated humorously what might be on the White Sox sleeve eventually, but in previous episodes. But I hadn't heard anything about this, and you'd think the Cubs would have been one of the first, as they're one of the more corporate teams imaginable. But Motorola, it makes sense at least. Motorola's headquarters are in Chicago. We actually have a mutual friend that has worked for Motorola. The Batwing M logo in a circle is fairly iconic. It's pretty simple. It doesn't offend me as much as I thought it was going to on the Cubs uniform, mainly because they've agreed to match their color palette with the Cubs. So on the different jerseys, it blends in with the same color scheme at least, much like the Tigers did with Meijer grocery store chains. You hardly notice the Meijer patch anymore, as I did a whole segment about it when they first introduced it last year. They've integrated the team colors into it, and you barely notice it anymore, which is kind of the opposite of the effect that I'm assuming these corporations are looking for when they put advertisements on. They kind of want people to notice them, but it doesn't offend me how the Tigers have done it with Meijer, and this doesn't offend me as much, or probably offends me a little bit more just because of the sheer size of the Motorola patch.
Huge.
It is an enormous circle. It's probably 4 inches in diameter on everyone's sleeve, so it is very noticeable. But at least it's very simple. It's not a word mark. It's just a logo, just a simple Batwing M in the circle, and it integrates the colors. So it's one of the lesser offensive sleeve patches that I've seen across the league. The only other weird thing about it is San Diego Padres have already had Motorola sleeve patches for a couple of years now. So I don't think there's been single corporation that sponsored two different teams, and I'm not quite sure what their connection to San Diego is. I mean, unless they have a separate headquarters there or something, I'm not sure how that came about. But it's kind of strange that two teams would have the exact same corporate sponsor on their jerseys. But I don't know. I'm all for it. I guess if it means more revenue and they can actually go above the de facto salary cap and get more players this offseason, I'm all for it. Sadly, I don't think that's how that's going to play out, but
right. It never does, right?
Hmm.
More money to the ownership. Cha-ching.
Well, that's all I've got for the Cubs. Do we want to move over to your San Francisco Giants?
My first place, MLA, San Francisco Giants, the only team on this podcast that is above 500. 2 games.
Yeah, congratulations.
Above 500. In fact, when we last tried to record this episode, they were only 500, but then they took 2 out of 3 from the Tigers, which was looking pretty good. I was getting chesty, as you pointed out, thinking there might be a sweep, but that was not.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you sent me the text after the second Giants win. Giants sweep. And it reminded me of the old Pete, the old cocky Pete.
That's right. I was metal. It was all the Metallica getting me all cocky and confident.
Well, yeah, and with your hubris after the lost episode, I thought you were back, but clearly that has not sustained itself throughout. Maybe it was that Tigers win on Sunday that took the wind from your sails. I'm sorry about that. I'd like to see you more excited about baseball, but
I think it's the 4.5 hours of sleep right now for this particular.
Yeah, you're dragging.
That's hitting me. But the Giants. Let's talk about the Giants, though. They are They are trending up. We are a game and a half out of a wild card spot, but like Smitty was pointing out, there's a couple teams ahead of them, so it's not quite really a game and a half. But 7-3 in their last 10. Their starting pitching has been unhittable at times. And one of those people who was unhittable was Blake Snell, who
literally
over a little, was it been like a week or so, he not only did he pitch past the 6th inning for Smitty, he pitched the whole fucking game.
That was one of my big arguments. One of my big arguments in the offseason about the Cubs not signing Blake Snell is just that he basically is a 5-inning pitcher most of his career, even though he's won 2 Cy Youngs somehow. I didn't trust him to be available or to pitch deep into games where he doesn't hurt your bullpen. And he shoved that right in my face. That's actually been not just me obviously bringing it up. It's been a theme because he mentioned that in his post-game comments. I've got him here. They can't say it anymore. He didn't add Smitty, but
are you sure? Don't take it out.
Complete game, shutout, no hitter. Leave me alone. This is actual quote. So he's definitely heard it. The same criticisms that I was levying towards him, but I mean, the dude has more Cy Youngs to that point, more Cy Youngs than he had starts that went through the 8th inning. So it's not, I don't think it was an unjust criticism, but it's good that he's actually crossed that off his list. No one can say that anymore. We will henceforth leave him alone.
Yeah, it's crazy too when we all know. I mean, I was kind of beside myself when he comes back from his his injury from last year, and in the month of April he had 11.57 ERA for the Giants. Yeah. By May it was 8.59. By June it was 5.79, and then he gets injured, right? But since coming back, he posted a 0.75 ERA in July and a 1.80 so far in August. So
I think he got healthy is what happened. I think he was dealing with injuries.
I mean, you kind of speculate, was he not 100% when he came back? Did he rush himself back because of the whatever, it's 32 million with 2 options? I don't know. But since coming back, I mean, he has just put up incredible numbers. And besides Blake Snell, you had the fact that you got Robbie Ray back, and then you got your existing starting pitching staff that, has outperformed what you thought they were going to do, and you're getting enough offense from the guys who are there, including, we ended up with the rookie of the month with Tyler Fitzgerald, and it's all looking like, and strength of schedule, that the Giants can make a serious run at a playoff spot, and didn't cost them anything at the trade deadline. So, we speculated about this. I said the one reason I'm not, what would I give them, a C or something? We're passing out our
trade
grades.
deadline grades.
Trade deadline grades are meaningless grades, but I don't know that they really, would I have liked to have seen them get like a real bat since the Soler situation didn't work out? Sure. But did they have to? Probably not, with the way the pitching was trending. So we'll see if it's enough. If it's enough to get them over the hump. They, like the Cubs, they have a lot of weak opponents coming up on the schedule. So, those two might be they may be battling it out for one of the final wild card spots. So
how great would that be if we've got a wild card race between your Giants and my Cubs to talk about for the
it would
next
be
6 to 8 weeks.
Finally something positive for this podcast over the last, like, whatever,
3 years.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. Yeah, but I'm in Giants, man. I'm in Giants. I'm coming off watching the Giants house band play this weekend. 2 shows in Chicago, Metallica. Like,
he's got his Giants cap on with his San Francisco Metallica t-shirt.
Yeah, I am all in watching Giants games. I'm not watching Cubs Sox. I'm watching Giants games.
All right.
So is that enough enthusiasm for you?
You're starting to turn the corner a little bit. You're seeing the lights. You're riding the lightning.
I'm riding the lightning, which they fucking played last night. Holy shit. They did 4 tunes off of Ride the Lightning last night.
No way.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I was watching Giants games this week because my Tigers were in San Francisco. That's the only reason I was staying up late for those. That was a late weekend. Tigers are kind of, they're just in the post trade deadline malaise. Their bullpen is just taxed. It's gone. They've blown multiple saves. They did win the series in Seattle to start last week, but they should have swept it except for a blown save, followed by another blown save in the first game of the San Francisco series, which was crestfalling, devastating, as I always get to hear it from you, and you did not disappoint a day later, giving me the return of Cocky Pete. Fortunately, they did win on Sunday. Other positive news, at least for the Tigers, is much like your Giants of the NL Rookie of the Month. Tigers had Colt Keith as Rookie of the Month for the American League with a 322 batting average, 1048 OPS, 7 home runs, and 17 RBI. Colt Keith, of course, was famous for being signed to a long-term extension with the Tigers before he set foot on a major league field. And I questioned that a bit in the offseason, as many did. The way it was originally reported was kind of ridiculous. With crazy escalators, and there's a possibility that it could be a 9-year deal worth 70 or $80 million, but the real deal is six years and $26 million, which is a lot for a player that's never been on the field, but never been on the major league field, but it's not outrageous. But it was a big risk, put a lot of pressure, I thought, on the Tigers and Colt Keith himself coming into the season, and it seemed to have taken a toll as he got off to a horrific start through May. I mean, he was I think he had the worst. If he didn't have the worst OPS in baseball, it was only because Javi Baez had a worse OPS. He turned that around and started turning that around in June, and to the point where he became Rookie of the Month in July. A lot of speculation nationally that he could be a Rookie of the Year candidate, and I I kind of was hoping for that, but I kind of took a left turn with that and was hoping Parker Meadows would supplant him as Rookie of the Year. Unfortunately, a slow start and then injuries got Parker Meadows off on the wrong foot, although he is back now and crushing the ball, stealing bases, stealing home runs, saving games, doing so, game-saving home runs robbed in the outfield. So there's some positivity there from the youngsters with the Tigers right now, which is good to see in another lost season with not much else to cheer for at this moment. But other Tigers news nationally, Jim Leyland, former manager, two-time World Series appearance with the Tigers, was inducted into the Hall of Fame a couple Saturdays ago, and then was his number was retired by the Tigers. And I guess I don't have a problem with it. He's a wonderful man by all accounts. He's beloved by anyone who knows him. Longtime baseball guy. He's been in the majors in different capacities for 50 years. Everybody loves the guy. I do too. I'm not sure he deserves his number to be retired by the Tigers. He never won the World Series. And that's one of the, when I think of Jim Leyland, I think of underachievement and frustration as much as anything, even though it was a golden era in some ways of Tiger baseball. They never got over the hump. And I almost think it's a disservice to Sparky Anderson, whose number is retired on the brick wall in center field at Comerica Park. He did win the World Series with the Tigers in '84. He was certainly a Hall of Famer. His resume, he was the first manager in Major League history to win a World Series with in both leagues, as he was manager for the Big Red Machine in the mid '70s, Cincinnati. Then to one of the greatest teams in history, the 1984 Tigers. I just feel like Jim Leyland never accomplished what the goal was. So I don't want to take things away from him, and I'm not gonna, if I ever go back to Comerica Park, certainly not gonna graffiti his or deface his number or anything like that. I'm not that bitter about it. I don't think it just doesn't seem right to me, because when I think of those Tiger teams, I think of underachievement, and a lot of it comes down to Jim Leyland. And he had an owner who would spend outrageously to support that team throughout that era. He had the players. He had multiple Cy Young Award winners on that roster. He had multiple MVPs in both Miguel Cabrera and Justin Verlander. They won a ton of games, but they never won the most important games. They lost in 2006 to the 83 win St. Louis Cardinals. They only won one game in that World Series, and that was a little bit tainted with Kenny Rogers having some kind of foreign substance exposed on his thumb. Sticky stuff before we really knew what sticky stuff was all about. 2012, of course, they lost to your Giants, swept by your Giants, one of the most painful experiences of my life. They were just completely listless and never really had a shot at any point in that series, and never felt they were competitive. It never felt in all four games there was anything to even cheer for. It was just a brutal experience, and I hold that on Jim Leyland. And so it just struck me as odd seeing his number retired by the Tigers. I think he has a Hall of Fame career, ironically enough. As a manager that's gone to multiple World Series, won this World Series with the Marlins in '97. He's got the resume to be a Hall of Famer, but I think specifically his Tiger resume doesn't warrant retiring his number and putting it next to Sparky Anderson. That's going to be unpopular in Detroit. I think everybody, because he's such a nice guy and everybody loves him. I had to put it out there. I've got this stupid podcast. I wanted to get that opinion out there. I don't know if anyone agrees with it. I don't know if it'll just annoy people or piss people off, but that's how I feel. So I don't know. You're loosely involved in this just because you beat Jim Leyland's Tigers in 2012. But I don't know if you had any thoughts about Leyland specifically. You there?
His win-loss record. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. His win-loss record with the Tigers is the whole reason he's even in this conversation. Because if you take the Tigers tenure out, he has a losing record. with the teams.
That's interesting.
If you remove the Tigers from this conversation, now who knows where he would have gone to manage? But just for the sake of discussion on this podcast, so he has the World Series win with the Marlins, and then they dismantled the team, and he had like 50 some wins the next year, and he had what could arguably be next to Shohei Ohtani, but like arguably like one of the greatest, like the greatest hitter that we'll ever see in Barry Bonds on Pittsburgh for all those years, and actually Pittsburgh had some pretty talented teams, and I think he only had 3 winning seasons with the Pirates over like 9 seasons. So I almost think the Tigers had to retire his number, because without the Tigers, he may not even be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he built his resume with the Tigers as much as anything. But
I agree with you.
He had. I mentioned Mike Ilitch would spend whatever it took to bolster that roster. He had general manager and Diamond Dave Dombrowski, as I like to call him, who would make crazy deals at the trade deadline every year to put the team over the top. And it just never happened. And that stink has to go lie on somebody. And it just, I feel like everyone did their part except for the manager. The worst part, and I failed to mention earlier, is as painful as 2006 and 2012 were. 2013, the Tigers were the best team in baseball, and they didn't even get out of the ALCS, as Joaquin Benoit was brought into Game 2 in Boston after the Tigers won Game 1, only to give up the grand slam to David Ortiz, where the famous Torrey Hunter flying over the wall, the goddamn corrupt Boston cop not doing his job, raised his arms iconically in the bullpen in celebration instead of providing security to the stadium. I think of that as the most critical and brutal moment in Tigers history. And then Leyland retired. He quit after that season, even though they would the next year have a rotation that had eventually 4 Cy Young Award winners, but they left it to Brad Ausmus to manage that season, which they made the playoffs, but got swept out of the first round by the fucking Orioles again.
The ass man.
Yeah, the ass man. So I blame Leyland for that too. That Ausmus is failing because they shouldn't have had to hire him in the first place if Leyland would have just stuck around. I understand there's personal reasons he had to do that, and it probably crushed him far more than it crushed me, losing that series and not winning that World Series in 2013. That's the year the Tigers really should have done it. Alas, we never even got there. So I have bitterness. I'm bitter when I think about those Tigers teams. It was so much fun, but they never got over the top, and it just to honor Leyland just doesn't sit right with me. So that's where I've landed on this.
All right.
I think with that, unless you had anything else, is there any shit Pete forgot or anything I forgot? Anything we forgot from that lost episode 150?
I'm looking at the list now just to make sure, but
yeah,
we covered everything on the original list. Couple game updates. The Cubs have stormed back. It's 8-7 now, so you probably want to get off this podcast.
8-7 winning or losing?
Losing 8-7, but they still have a runner on third with 2 outs, and your favorite Cub is up PCA.
Oh boy.
I will tell you,
he's been hitting lately.
Yeah, I will tell you more shocking news. In the second inning, I know it's only the second inning, but the Sox are beating the Yankees 2-1. So the Sox have scored
new manager bump
2 runs off of Gill, who's a really decent pitcher. So
Gill,
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I might actually maybe I'll watch a little Sox. I don't know.
Why don't you tune in a little bit?
Maybe I'll tune in to watch Giancarlo Stanton and Jazz Chisholm helpful lead me to what could be a fantasy baseball victory.
Oh, we're doing an impromptu fantasy minute.
Maybe we should talk for a fantasy minute before we say goodbye.
1 minute. You and I are again having a historic battle at the top of American League A-holes, as we're an AL only fantasy league. You and I are both at 60 points in our rotisserie league, far outpacing the other. I think the third place guy is like 15,
42.
20 points.
Yeah,
Oh my
42
God.
points behind us. Well, 42
Yeah,
is what he has, 18 points behind us.
18 points. That's a ridiculous lead. It's just crazy that you and I are dominating the league so much, but that you and I neither of us can take a step forward. Take the strong hand against each other. It's like we've been battling back and forth basically for a month at least now. I mean, maybe more than that. But
I mean, every time we swap positions, it's like anywhere from a point to a half a point only is the lead. Maybe a point and a half even sometimes, but it's all within like someone someone gets 10 RBIs one night and now they're back, in first or whatever. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's going to come down to, I think, down the stretch, if either one of our teams has like crazy ass offensive nights that either stretch it out or allow some of us to catch up in some of those stats we're trailing. But
you and I are in first or second, I think, in
almost every
9 of the
category.
10 categories. So that's ridiculous. But
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to injuries. If each of our either one of our rosters can't stay totally healthy, that's going to be a challenge. And I've had some injury issues, but still right there. But I don't know. It's going to be fun for you and me. I don't think anyone else gives a fuck. There's less interesting than other people's fantasy teams, but it's our fucking podcast and we're dominating our fantasy league. So why not?
I know you'll understand this. Maybe I don't know if anyone else will, but I'm so serious about winning this year that I dropped Lewis Robert from my roster because he is poor fantasy player and actually a poor player overall right now.
I heard the stat yesterday that he has struck out 40 times in 81 at bats since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Like
he looks lost.
50% of the time he's striking out. That dude is checked out. Or I don't know what's going on. He had a terrible Crosstown Series. I think he was 0 for 10 against the Cubs. So there's something weird going on there. But he got paid. Rick Hahn paid him, so he's all set. Doesn't really matter. It's all good. Well, with that, I think we can finally wrap up this episode 150 of Major League A-Holes. 150 fucking episodes. And I still see the record light going. So I believe this one is not going to magically disappear. So,
well, let's hope the
congratulations
makes it to you tonight.
Yeah, we'll see. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to me. Congratulations to everyone for listening. If you've listened to 150 episodes of us blathering, please let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We're going to send you something.
We'll send you something. Yeah, we'll figure out a way to make that. That would be incredible if someone's actually done that. So,
also, please send the screen captures of all the listens so we can validate it. Okay.
I mean, if somebody really wants to rip us off, I'll let them rip us off. It'd be more episodes than you've actually listened to. So
well, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I don't want to
send you a T-shirt or something.
I tried to listen to the last episode, but now here we are again. So, and I don't want to listen to this version of it.
So. You can listen to me piss. You can listen to me piss for a minute and 57 seconds. I should have released that as the lost episode, but
episode 150.1 tonight.
Well. We will, if you watch any games this week, I guess we'll do a podcast next week. If not, I guess we'll figure out what we do next. Hopefully something piques your interest and we'll have something to talk about. But in the meantime, you can find us on social media. Yeah. You can find us on social media. Hey, are you on Threads? Do you know anything about Threads?
Yeah, I'm on Threads. I don't do anything with it, but I'm on it.
Well, I mean, Twitter and X has turned into such a cesspool. Not that it wasn't before, but it seems so much worse recently. And with the election coming up, I think a lot of porn stars love Major League A-Holes. I mean, they want to hear us talk. It's amazing. They have no friends, but they listen to us.
By the way, we're number one podcast in Russia amongst strippers.
Russian female Russian bots.
We are number one.
Yeah, they fucking love us. So. I started a Major League A-Holes Threads account.
I saw that today or something, right?
Yeah, I think we already have 13 people, like real people actually
Oh,
following
wow.
us on that somehow,
Cool.
which I had no idea that was even possible. So I think I'll start doing that, and maybe phasing out our Twitter presence, or I'll probably just do all this shit still. But you can find us on Twitter. We've got multiple handles there, but Major League A-Holes, Sox Type Thing. Bold English D is the Tigers feed. What all? Cult of Cub. Fucking underscore A's for the A's. We're also on Facebook. We've been on Facebook for 15 years almost now. So keep that going. And we're also on Instagram. But mainly check us out. Check out our YouTube page. We're up to 222 subscribers as of this afternoon. That is blowing up. We've got lots of people watching. Appreciate that. I don't know why people want to look at our faces instead of just listening to us in our podcast form, but that's what the cool kids are doing these days. So check us out on YouTube at Major League A-Holes. So with that, I think we can declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.